Okay. Welcome everybody. Shalom Aleichem. The last few shiurim discussions that we have over here, we discussed the status of an electric light. And we came together to a decision. Electric light is a fire, considered to be a fire. But the conversation was most likely for the Isur part of it. Isur Mavir, Mechaber, you're allowed to use it on Shabbos and not. But now a question which is very interesting, very popular is, once we consider that it's a fire, meaning it's a prohibition of lighting any light bulb or whatever it is on Shabbos, or distinguish or whatever it is, the question is, how about lekula? Can we also consider electric fire as a fire to the extent of using it for whatever mitzvah that involves in fire? We know we have a lot of mitzvahs that we do with fire. First mitzvah is Shabbos, candles. We're using fire. How about an electric one? It's unfortunate, and sometimes not only unfortunate, sometimes it's for mazel tov, sometimes you're stuck in the hospital. Can you use electric fire?
Lady giving birth.
Lady is giving birth. Yes. How about sometimes Hanukkah? You're on a plane. You're missing a night. What about the solution? You can take a flashlight. You can maybe turn on the light of the plane and just have a mitzvah of Hanukkah. How about that?
Of law been written in the Kriege. You basically the diary. You got the candle and the call.
That was the old times. You can't do it anymore. In the old time, you could have light, some candles in the planes.
That's also behecht.
Yeah, that is enough.
Doesn't work anymore. Doesn't work anymore. Fine. The question is, can we use electric lights for Shabbos lech, Hanukkah lech, how about Avdullah, and how about in the shul? We have here candles, but we used to have lights, electric lights. Can we use it? Yortzeit lech. We have to do Yortzeit on the Kuhnevich family. Maybe you can have it on an electric Yortzeit lech.
Biggest schummels.
Biggest schummels. Very good. Can we use a flashlight for biggest schummels? Do we have to close the lights when we do the biggest schummels? In other words, the question is, after we're considering the electric fire as a fire, logically, lechumra, so it's an isur of mavir, mechaber, we're not allowed to use it on Shabbos, it's an isur deraisa, etc. How about to take it to the other side and use it lekula? Says it's a fire. If it's a fire, let's use it for Shabbos candles, let's use it for Abdullah, let's use it for all other stuff. So this is the question we're trying to cover today and see what the halukha is. Any suggestions? What do you think? Yes? Makes sense? Sure. So simply we can say, right, it's a fire, and if it's a fire, you can use it. What's different if you're using any type of oil or whatever it is, you're using electrons. What's different?
The fuel has no shear. If it's from the wall, from the current, there's no shear to it.
Oh, very good.
And this is a problem with Hanukkah. You need a shear. And the Hanukkah's near Shabbos.
Then I'm going to need a shear.
You don't need a shear for Hanukkah. Anything that needs a shear, battery is one thing. Maybe the battery is not going to shear.
Good.
But
electric you should change the seat.
Just push this forward. Electric from the wall has no shear. It's continuous. You never use it. So therefore,
so for Hanukkah, he's suggesting a very good, important thing. We know we need to put a certain amount of oil for the Hanukkah light. We need a shear. To shit this Gemara, but that's halacha. We have to get a shear, an amount of oil. And when you have a machine plugged into the wall, even though it's for sure going to work, usually it works. Power headed is in New York and not such a common thing. But at least you don't have the shear in the So what I'm saying over here basically, it's fire. It's considered to be fire. I just have a different issue, right? We have an issue about the shear. So in other words, if we're going to talk about Ner Shabbos or Abdullah, or whatever it is, which is there's no issue of a shiur. In other words, you're saying that you don't have a problem with the actual fire. You consider it as a fire, you just have like a side issue about the shiur of Hanukkah. That could be one opinion, that could be a mahalach. And some of the poskim are discussing it.
And Havdalah is Mayora.
So here you're getting in another question. The question, what's the problem? So we have...
This is different shadows, different
Very
circles.
good. Very good. So let's discuss everything in an order, which means what we're trying to do here in this shiurim is basically there's a raid going on, there's a talk going on. It's very important to make silent, to make order on whatever we discuss, and then when it comes to Malchut Maisa, it's understandable and we can make a psak, dependent situation, circumstance, but at least to know what the conversation is all about. So I did it. There's a lot in the poskim, mamash a lot. So I couldn't get so much of associate over here, but at least the points that we have to discuss is here in the copies that we have over here. Just right around. So the first thing that we have to consider is very good. That's going to be the next thing that we want to discuss. After we're going to establish the status of a regular light bulb, we'll have to discuss today. Almost you can find kind of light bulb. Always you can find LED. And LED is not a fire whatsoever. So the question what's going to be then the whole of course it's a different conversation. So what we have over here basically two conversations. The first conversation will be whether we need an actual fire, and it might be that even though we're going to decide that l'chumra it's considered fire and Malachas Mavli and it's prohibited by Shabbos, but still it could be it's not going to serve as an actual fire for the purpose of Abdullah, Shabbos, Hanukkah and all of that. That could be one conversation. The other conversation could be even though we're going to take it as a regular fire, we're going to say even like cooler, it's considered to be a regular fire, it could still be a certain side problems that we're going to have with using electricity for the purpose of those mitzvahs. So what we have to make sure always, what is the conversation? Are we talking about the actual fire? Do we have a problem with the actual fire? Or we have a problem, side problems that we can maybe take care of. For example, the problem of a shiur of Hanukkah, let's say we decided it's a fire, so we can use it for Hanukkah, but still we need a shiur. So we need a shiur. You can't really use a plug-in menorah. You have to use a flashlight, which is a battery, so you have a shiur in it. We can get into this conversation. So always the conversation will be first.
So ausgelöscht mit Items. Wir kennen es fast sind ziemlich kalt, ja. Wir nehmen die Knäppler, make es machen.
So that's getting on the Kashala because it has the miser in it. But it's not enough to make them. No, I should make the fire alarms.
Well, my baby, I went to his house for the first time, and I lit those candles. It was not really happy. The second time, I wasn't going to do it because the fire department came to something. What would the halacha be about my wife here in the dog post?
Very good, very good. So those conversations are very relevant when it comes to the hospital. Hotels, planes. Yeah, definitely. So this is the conversation what we have today. So if we're gonna divide the conversation. So let's not get into the side conversation. Let's put it this way. Meaning about the shiur, about the Maisa, look, and all of these conversations we're gonna have. First of all, let's understand rather the fact that we established for the first 3 shiurim over here, we discussed that electric fire is considered to be an actual fire. The question is, are we going with that all the way for all those mitzvahs that we have over here, or not? That's going to be our first conversation. And then we'll see, maybe in particular, every mitzvah can have different halachas and problems by himself, that we're going to talk later on. So we're going to start with Minei Shabbos. Minei Shabbos, very common question. Very common question. Can we use electricity for Shabbos light? Very common question. Hospital, hotels, all over the place. So we all know there's the famous story about Rav Tzvi was very poor. The Gemara says that Rav Tzvi was very poor. He couldn't light the candles on Shabbos, didn't have money. And his daughter put vinegar on the steak instead of the oil. Like a story. And Abchanita says, whoever the Kodesh Baruch Hu said to the oil to burn, is going to say to the vinegar to burn. That's what's going to happen. Nice story. But basically, in this story, we're saying that you don't need the real fire. Why? Because what happened when the vinegar starts burning? The vinegar can't burn, right? So what happened? It was a miracle. It was something else. It wasn't the fire. Because fire cannot burn out the vinegar. Fire can only burn out the oil. Right? So we can argue, maybe no, it was an actual fire, so there was the actual miracle. The miracle was that they got actual fire sitting on vinegar. Right? They could be the two options. What was the story about Chanina? What was the story? The story was that it was just lechtik, it was just a light of I don't know what. Or the miracle was so far, it was an actual fire coming down, sitting on top of vinegar, and burn for Shabbos. So this is actually one of the bases from this conversation between the poskim, the Best Price of Frank, and Yosef from Zalman, and many years ago. What was the story? So we don't really know what the story was. So we can assume. So the conversation actually starts from there. What was the assumption of the miracle? What was there? It was an actual fire, or it was just light?
What type of light?
It was a miracle. It was a miracle. So this miracle was just something. It was just light, right?
What type of light was it? It can't be a bulb, right?
So
It was a miracle. Right.
Ist nicht kann du sind das Salzanes.
So
Das ist der ganze.
So wie ist der jetzt gewesen? Wie ist der jetzt gewesen?
Hat das gemacht als Nest, weil wollte das machen.
What could be? Es kann sein, dass es so, dann man darf sich Feiertag. Whatever is lechtig, is lechtig. Oh. So the Speise Fang and other poskim says, probably, most likely, it wasn't an actual fire sitting over vinegar. Most likely, it was some type of light, right? So you see from there that for Neil Shabbos, you don't need an actual fire, you don't need an actual oil. Whatever it gives you light is good. And because of that, many of the poskim says, yes, you can use electricity for Shabbos. Now, the conversation starts in electricity. Now the question will be, what about LED today? But if you're going to work with the same method, the point is just, it should have light. It doesn't matter if it's electrons or it's LED, it doesn't matter what the platform is. As long as you have something that gives you light. The Chuvet Shabbos, this is the Chuvet Shabbos.
Ich bin am Essen, Petra, aber so kennt ihr
Wie ist der Jöitze gewesen? Ich bin am Essen, wie ist der Jöitze gewesen?
Ja, das gewesen, beschaß Wasser, aber jedes Mal brennt, als sagt, man zu tun ist.
Oh, you got in the Jöitze gewesen, there's no point to make the nest.
Ik wil het naar elektrisch, dus ik ga elektrisch.
Huh?
Ik zeg elektrisch, ik wil het naar elektrisch zijn.
Fine. Aber noch
Als
alles.
schutting.
Was ist in der Jöitze gewesen?
Ik ga elektrisch.
Aber er hat gewollt Jöitze dann.
Wat?
Er hat gewollt Jöitze dann. Wie ist der gewollt? Ik ben even Shabbos, ik wil maken
Ik
met
wil het, maar het gaat gelijk, ik denk het gaat per se.
Dus ik heb die Jöitze gewesen.
Nee.
Mijn sepgenoot is.
Heb je niet?
Pashas, wie je mooi zegt, Pashas was vooral mee geweest. En met Jöitze dan. Je stok. En ik had een nest. Hoe is dat te doen?
Also einmal passiert das als auch, die Summe die ganze Zeit, dass wegen dem ist, das ist nicht gefahren.
So what happened to my job schedules and we had to left,
So interesting. So let's put it this way. Let's see. So again, we can argue about this raya. There's some other rayas going on in the poskim. It was just a nice beginning to the discussion. But many poskim believes that we can yoitze Shabbos left with electricity.
Zo is allemaal niet. Dat is Shinsky.
Some poskim. Many poskim says it
what
could
you say
be.
about Shabbos?
Oh, right. So we'll get to the work soon. But that's.
In the hospital, it's dangerous.
Ja, das ist
Fluorescent or incandescent.
Oh, so that's what we're talking now. If the raya will go from vinegar, then you can go all the way to LED. But
Eén sepgenoot is. Shape by the Mora.
he was yoitze given with him.
He didn't have money to buy oil.
But he was yoitze with him.
Praktische genoeg gezegd.
Is that nice? That's the point of it.
Je weet ze zeggen, black pension of
it wasn't Shchinuch because it's impossible. It's only by miracle. But once we have another situation, we can apply it. We can argue, I agree. Some other poskim argue. But there's some other conversation back and forth about it, but still, most of the poskim feels that he can light Shabbos lamp with electricity. Now, like we discussed, this is the first conversation, whether it's considered fire. Now, the other conversation would be like you said, what about the brookllyn lahadlik? Now, not only the word lahadlik, there's a machlokes showing in Toysus, whether you need a meiser to turn the Shabbos left on or not. What about if you have some left from before Shabbos, an hour before Shabbos, is it okay or not? Machlokes showing whether you have to maybe distinguish the first one and get new ones. In other words, the machlokes is the point of Neir Shabbos is to have left or to actually turn the candles on.
Shabbat.
Shabbat. What about the others? Of course, Shabbos. They could be.
Aber ich lebe von früher kann noch schon weiß.
We know that the more says the story with Rav Tzvi says to his wife, you can't light the candles too early. You gotta be more close to Shabbos. In other words, it has to be nickel for the Shabbos. You have to do it for Shabbos. Right? So if we need a meiser, we have to actually turn the candles on. So then the question begins. Pressing the switch, is it a meiser? You're turning on the electricity. Now, the chumrah, we are being choishes, there is a meiser. We just said last week that to turn the switch on is the issur of Shabbos. So the chumrah, it could be considered that it's a meiser, but now the cooler, we want to say that it's considered like you light the candles. Here's a Veshmaisach is a little bit hesitate, and he says maybe the chumrah is considered a meiser, but the cooler is not considered a meiser. Which means, and even though we're going to say the mitzvah of Neir Shabbos, you can be yoitzer with electricity, could be the brucha will be a problem. Because you can't really say the halik. Now there's some other person who says you can, no problem, you can say the halik, no problem. But what we have to remember is that the definition, that the brucha is not defining the mitzvah. Meaning even though, let's say for some reason we're not going to say a brucha, you still need to make the mitzvah itself.
The brucha or the left?
There's a brucha, there's another mitzvah to make a brucha. But if let's say you're now in the hospital, you want to be choishes to some shittas, you don't want to make a brucha lahadlik. You still have to turn the switch on because you have to be yoytze the mitzvah itself. Even though the brucha, you want to be machma not to make the brucha. The mitzvah is right? It's two separate things.
The brucha is not fertig in this.
Beides wird Rebbeinu, but it's two separate things. You have to do the mitzvah. And if you can make a brucha, you can make a brucha. Not, it's two separate things. Some people, with Tzvi Ortner, for example, is very popular question. That's what we discussed. That's what we said. That's what therefore you need a meiser to turn us on. But Tzvi Ortner, many people say, oh, I skip a day, I'm not making a brucha, okay, forget it. No, the mitzvah is a mitzvah. There's a question whether you can make a brucha or not. It's two different things. So here the same thing. This is acceptable on most of the poskim. You can be yoitze with electricity, the mitzvah of Neir Shabbos. It's a machlokes whether you can make a brucha or not. Which means if you're in a situation, in a hotel, in a hospital, or whatever it is, you should definitely find something to turn on the chulot Shabbos, closer to the shir. Even though you want to be machma not to make the brucha.
With all types of bulbs?
So again, as I said before, regular bulb for sure. If you want to go with the vinegar so far, you can get until but that's already a debate. One thing is interesting. Some poskim saying, which is relevant for everyone of us actually, we say, if we go so far, we feel that electricity could be used for Neir Shabbos. It means that basically every time, every Friday night, the wife is going to turn the lights on, the candles on, the lights is already on. And we just said we are being yoitzer, right, on electricity. So what are you making now with 2-3 candles on the table? It doesn't add anything. Huh? So you can only be over machille, which is also not so like a chille.
The Shabbos tish.
So the question is,
Do you have to turn off the chandelier?
Oh, that's what it is.
And then who's going to turn it on again after she bends his leg?
Very good. So some poskim are getting into a problem that says like this: you can't, if you're using regular electricity, so you can't really make a bracha on the candles, because even though you're being yoitze for toises meaning, here we go. So some people are machmir because of this conversation to turn off the electricity before you light the candles. Then you make the bracha on the candles, right? And then the wife can make it, so someone else has to turn the electricity on.
Could you have the money not to be right now?
She can make a pie if you want.
We're talking her and should include the
Again,
electric.
should be Gab Shabbos.
Before that.
What do you mean?
Before she make the bracha.
Oh, they could also be an option. Yes. You can turn off and then do on both. Turn on and the candles and then make the bracha.
Her halacha could be coiled with the chandelier.
They could be an option as well. Very good.
Just like she doesn't just light 2 lights, she lights 10 lights, or she lights 12 lights.
Yeah, it could be also an option. Right.
I think it's just like this.
It's a chumrah. It's definitely a chumrah. It's just bringing out the point how far the poskim agrees that electricity is a real fire, a real, for the Shabbos left.
It's fast, it's bien, it's not it's sind like nicht kind electricity shops. Right? But it's a kann was mir ganz andere kann go. Noch die Frage ist nachts, bist du direkt auf oder nicht?
Why machen? Okay, so this is the Shabbos Lecht. Shabbos Lecht, again, we don't have a condition so much of fire, so therefore we can say so. Now, when it gets into Havdullah, for example, it's very interesting. On one hand, famous of Chamoiz Gajinsky, one of the big poskim, there was a time where there was a debate that we discussed last week, whether it's fire or not. So many poskim at that time made every week Havdullah of electricity just to show that it's actual fire. Many big poskim, Chamoiz, they make Havdullah on it.
Now, how do they make it?
They turn on fire before.
With 2 knight, how do they get it?
So-
If it's Abdul.
So again, they did it. It's a clear Messiah that Chamoiz used to
How
do
do
it.
they do?
But some other poskim say that, yeah, that's maybe it's not a good idea. Why? Because even though we're going to agree that for Neir Shabbos electricity works, for Abdullah it's different. Because the reason why we're doing Abdullah is we want to show the first fire that Uda Marisha took out of the stone. That's going to be an actual fire. So some poskim, even though they're more lenient for Neir Shabbos, and not only lenient, like we said before, some people feel that electricity is a real Neir Shabbos, but still for Abdullah is a little bit more of a
You
fire.
have a problem with Zuchit also, going to Zuchit.
As clara, you have to be able to look the Neir into clara, this could be. So that's, we said, the side problems. Now we're talking about the problem of defining the fire itself. So by Abdullah, even before that, many poskim has a problem with the fire itself. It could be that it's not defined as fire, which needed for Abdullah, because Abdullah is boiler. We're talking about the creation of an actual fire, and still electricity, even though I'm going to go very far and say that it's fire, but still could be that fire is a fire. Now, the same thing goes when you're talking about Ner Hanukkah. So maybe we can think, maybe it's Ner Hanukkah, it's fine. But still, because Ner Hanukkah, according to some poskim, has to be compared to the fire, to the candles in the Beis Hamikdash. There was an actual fire. So again, the same issue. It could be considered as something that lights, but still, because I have a special condition, right, to have a fire, because it's similar to the Beis Hamikdash, right? So there's going to be more of a problem. Right. So here, the poskim making an interesting difference, like this. In the shul, the menorah that we have in the shul, that for sure, Zeichel of Beis Hamikdash, that for sure has to be an actual fire, and therefore you cannot be yoitze with electricity. At home, that's a little bit of a machloik, it's rather just a Zeichel for the Nes, or it's going to be comparable to the Beis Hamikdash. So over there, if a person is in a situation, again, of a plane, hospital, whatever it is, they said you can use electricity, but absolutely not LED. because LED for sure is not fine. So over there, and Ner Abdullah, Ner Chanukah is more chumah, so you have to make sure to find an actual bulb, an old type of bulb, any fluorescent or LED is not going to work. So the idea that we had to press the button in the plane, that's not going to work. You're going to get something, something before.
Side fluorescent, side LED is
For Hanukkah. Interesting is talking about nails by Saknesis in the shul. So also they refer, I'm talking about just candles around, it's fine, but the candle that we have actually the nail tumah is also works with the nail tumah and the Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, some Poskim says again, whatever we need an actual fire like the Beis Hamikdash is not going to work with electricity, and for sure not with LED. So what else we left over? Tikkes Chumetz. Most of the Poskim say you can use electricity. It's not a problem. It gives you a better light. Even though it says in Tikkes Chumetz you have an issue when you have an actual fire. In the corners and places it says it's much better. You can have a flashlight, whatever you want. So this is Tikkes Chumetz. Tikkes Chumetz probably yes. There's not enough an issue. And then there's some, like you said, with some side problems, like you said. Favdola, some people say it's considered like clara, it's like a piece of glass. There's a din of avuka. It's said to be like a single fire sometime, it's a mechanic or so. And some consider the spark inside, like more of one candle is considered to be avuka. So it could be some side problems. So in other words, to put together the halacha and the ma'aseh as we finish now this year, Ner Shabbos seems to be very okay, Lechatchila, for most poskim, to use electricity. It seems to be even LED. Now, Brucha, some people are more machmir because of saying the Hadlik, they could be more abound, but many poskim feels you can make a Brucha. Which means in any situation, the person is stuck in a hospital, a motel, whatever it is, you can definitely use electricity. Lechatchila should be a regular bulb. LED can also work.
בלי שם המלכס.
On the Brucha probably, yeah, that could be.
Why is LED crucial for Ner Shabbos?
Like I said before, because if you take the rye from vinegar,
Oh,
you can go all the way to the bulb. And if you disagree, you don't use LED. That's an Indian, you should do. That's an Indian.
נר שמה.
That's an Indian.
נר שמה או נר שמן זייס.
That's in Yonik, we're talking about Halacha. Now, and on the other hand, we go so far in our Shabbos, we said before, the Chumrah. And even if you have your electricity at home, you're probably not going to be able to with your candles. Some people are machmer, like we said before, to turn off the electricity and use it both together to make the Brucha. Havdullah and Chanukah, which is a little bit more of an actual fire, you need to have a boil moira and Havdullah. And Chanukah it has to be like the Beis Hamikdash. Some say even the shul. However, it's getting a little bit more complicated. Some poskim disagree. So again, like Hatzedek we shouldn't do. If there's no way out, we can do. Now, LED, of course, not going to work for Abdullah, Chanukah, and in the shul. Because Chometz we said, everything should work. Oh yeah, I got back to the